Welcome to episode 62 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50 and your host for today's show. Today I'm interviewing a man who is not yet 50, but he has a wonderful opportunity for seasoned citizens to serve others during the most important moments of their lives. Jon Sanders is one of the people behind Life Celebration Institute. It's an organization that helps men and women in the United States and Canada to become certified to officiate life celebrations and rites of passage, such as weddings, funerals, and new child celebrations. Jon's business partner, Wayne Previtt, developed the Institute several years ago when he was living in Canada. Jon is helping Wayne to expand the program in the United States. The trained celebrants show up in a very professional way to preside over the events. In the past, people may have hired pastors to lead the celebrations. However, with more people not involved in church today, they still want someone to lead a unique and memorable ceremony. Jon explains why people like having non-clergy members presiding over weddings and especially funerals. Pastors sometimes see those ceremonies as interruption to their real ministry activities, and some churches are too small to accommodate large events, so families look for people who can officiate outside of churches or in locations far away from a pastor's church. Consequently, leading life celebrations is an opportunity for men and women to have their own ministries in the marketplace and make extra money doing it. To tell us more about this opportunity to make a difference in the lives of people in your local area, please welcome Jon Sanders with Life Celebration Institute to the show. Thanks for joining me, Jon. I appreciate the time. I understand that you have developed a new platform that, although you are not yourself over 50 yet, may be a viable opportunity for people over 50 to utilize their skills and passions in helping people celebrate major life events. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Greg. Thanks for having me on the show. And you're 100% correct in what you're saying there, and love to dive into the conversation and tell you all about it.
Super. How did you get it started, or how did it come about?
Let's define the it that we're talking about. I think we're talking about the Life Celebration Institute that we are launching here in the United States. And I say United States because this has been very established in Canada. And there's a little bit of a backstory to this. I met the founder of Celebrating Life Ministries out of Canada several years ago through another platform that I have started and that I oversee called Entre Pastors. And through that platform, I met Wayne Previtt, who is the founder of Celebrating Life Ministries in Canada. And what that is, they train and certify and ordain people in the world of life celebrations, these rites of passage, marriage, funerals, new life celebration. And it's an incredible ministry that they've built, they being Wayne and his wife, Roseanne, they've built over the last 20-some years in Canada. They've certified hundreds, probably thousands of people over the years in this space to go out and then be certified, trained life celebration specialists that show up in a very professional way at weddings, funerals, new life celebrations, and have that opportunity for impact, as well as the ability to earn some significant income in those moments. So when I met Wayne and he shared with me his vision of starting that here in the United States, there are some differences between Canada and the U.S. in terms of some of the laws around weddings specifically, but at the core of it, the mission is the same. And there's just, like I said, Wayne, if you want to get that started, I would be more than happy to help you, because I see what you're doing. I see the vision of it. I believe in it. I see the need for it. And it was something that I was happy to jump in. And we just have really got that up and going here now in the U.S. the last few months. So we're excited about it.
I think that would be wonderful. So these are folks who are not necessarily pastors who are officiating these life events.
Yeah, Wayne would tell you that, and this may be a little abrasive to some, but I'm just going to say it. And by the way, context, so you know where I'm coming from. I have been in and around pastoral ministry my entire life. I've earned the right to say what I'm getting ready to say here, and that is that professional clergy have actually been some of the ones that have the biggest struggle with the very thing that Wayne and Roseanne have been doing. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but for years and years in the church, clergy have just seen weddings and funerals as a expected part of their duties. Often it's a interruption to the real ministry that they're doing, and they don't necessarily, and I'm painting with a broad brush, certainly there's exceptions, but as a general rule, they don't necessarily love showing up for weddings and funerals. There's a lot of mindset around how they do it. It's just their job. They don't necessarily approach it with a lot of excellence. So to your original question, Greg, yes, the majority of people that Wayne and Roseanne have certified are non-clergy. It's people that are, maybe they're part of the family. That's how they got started. They were asked to do a wedding and realized, man, I really enjoyed this. I'm good at it. And now they start getting asked by others to do it. Maybe they see it as a means for them to have their own ministry out in the marketplace that also generates revenue and income for them. So I would say the majority of the people that we're training and certifying are non-clergy. Now, having said that, I still have a heart for the pastors, and I think there's an incredible opportunity for pastors to get in on this and really to see it differently than they ever have. A little bit of behind the scenes information. Oftentimes in the world of pastoral ministry, pastors are just expected to do these things at no additional charge. Maybe they'll get a gift card or something here or there. And it's really, when you think about it from let's just focus on the wedding side of it for a minute. Every other professional that shows up to that wedding is getting paid often very well for the services that they're providing, whether it's the photographer, the cakes, the DJs, the venue, all of the things that go into that. And yet the very one that is the only one that's actually legally required to be there to conduct and officiate the legal ceremony, the bringing of two people together, not to mention the spiritual aspect, if it's someone who is, doing a Christian wedding or sees the spiritual significance in what a wedding is. That one person so often traditionally is very much overlooked and undervalued. And again, if maybe they're given a little something for all their time and effort being put in. And this is why I say this, it's a really cool thing for pastors to lean into, because if we can help change some of your paradigms around this, we can actually show you how to get paid for the value that you're bringing and have for way too long just been expected to deliver, for free. And so I am excited, and we are helping pastors kind of shift gears into this mode of doing weddings and funerals. But absolutely, this is for non-clergy as well.
That always bothered me. I was a professional photographer for a number of years, and I did a lot of weddings. And it was just amazing to me the amount of expense and the time that was being put into the wedding. And they didn't want any pictures of the ceremony itself because that was degrading the ceremony or something like that. In Sun City, Arizona, where I live, a lot of people are involved in anniversary celebrations and things like that. Is that something that these life officiants can do as well?
100%. Yes, you could absolutely take that same skill set and bring it to a vow renewal ceremony. Right. And the beautiful thing is I've heard Wayne and Roseanne share their story. They've done everything from the massive weddings and the most beautiful of venues down to the smallest family setting in someone's backyard, or just cool locations where it's just a very intimate group of people that are gathered for it. And so, yes, that professional who shows up to serve by leading through that major life moment with empathy, with professionalism, with that strong, secure leadership, like that is a skill set that can be utilized in a number of different ways, including like a vow renewal ceremony or an anniversary thing, whatever. So it's a really cool thing to get to serve people in that capacity.
What is involved in officiating a life celebration?
At the most simple heart of it, you are conducting a legal ceremony. And if you're a believer, if you recognize, the hand of God in his role in the family and marriage, you are also standing in the gap of a very significant spiritual plane as you're bringing two lives together. Having said that, there's professional ways to do that where you're showing up with excellence and leading, like you're really becoming a part of their story. You're helping tell their story. You're helping them see themselves in their story and recognize what's happening in this moment. And that can be done through someone that's skilled in doing that versus, I'm going to say, a more lazy approach, which again, I don't want to throw a black eye toward clergy, but often pastors will just show up with the same old sermon, just scratch out the name from before and put the new one in. And it's really disconnected from becoming a part of the story and joining that couple in that major life moment and just showing up in the most professional of ways. So I hope that makes sense, but there's definitely not all officiants are created equal. Just because you're the guy or gal standing up there leading them through the ceremony, there's really good ways of doing that, and then there's maybe not so great ways of doing that.
If you don't have to be a professional clergy to do this, are there special skills or requirements or traits that people or that you would be looking for in training people?
Yeah, some of the requirements that we put out there is we challenge people to essentially self-eliminate it. Hey, if you are not some of these things, then don't go down this road. For one, you need to care about people. If you don't love people and have a care for people, then this probably isn't something that you should step into. The professionalism is also a really big piece, and there's a lot of things that goes into that. But showing up on time, or let's just start with actually showing up. Would you believe me if I told you that there's a number of times that people don't, the officiant doesn't even show up. They just completely blow off the ceremony altogether, or they come in late with just a very non-professional attitude to the whole thing. To me, that's just unthinkable to treat people in that way. But what we're looking for is someone that shows up with professionalism. They're dressed appropriately for the part. You are dressed up. A word that gets used a lot, Greg, in weddings, that when people talk about weddings, the word is perfect. Man, it was just, everything that day was just perfect. Oftentimes that excludes the ceremony part of it. Like you were saying earlier, that just gets so overlooked, or we just try and ignore all of the cringe-worthy moments that happened as a part of that ceremony. We want to change that narrative. We want to help train a generation of wedding officiants that show up into that space with professionalism, where people are walking away from the ceremony going, wow, that was one of the best I've ever been to. That was incredible. And they can't even necessarily put their finger on it. The difference when you've sat through something that's been sloppy and careless and not very professional versus the goal that we're shooting for in terms of our professionalism that we require and that we train and teach, it's worlds apart different. And so, yeah, we're looking for people that see that and take that seriously, that are willing to step into that and really show up in the right way in some of these most amazing milestone moments in people's lives.
I was just at a ceremony a couple of weeks ago celebrating the life of somebody who had died a few months ago, and it looked like the pastor had taken a page right out of a liturgy handbook and thrown in a couple of key phrases and things like that pertaining to the individual who had died. Are you requiring people or encouraging them to develop life stories around that individual's unique life when we're talking about a funeral or something to that effect?
Absolutely. It's joining them in their story. And it's absolutely about showing up and bringing that person's story to bear and celebrating that life, not just scratching out the name. And hopefully you remembered to scratch out the name of the last funeral, so you're not up there saying the wrong name through the whole ceremony. And we've heard those stories as well. And so you're absolutely joining people in that moment, again, with empathy, with professionalism, and celebrating the life of that person and really creating a memorable moment for that family, whether it's at the end of life, you know, at a funeral celebration, or whether it's at marriage or even new life celebration. Any of those moments, man, let's become a part of that story and let's show up. By the way, I'll go down this road. I don't know, again, everyone listening to this, what their faith persuasion may be, but I want to just point this out real quick, Greg. A lot of clergy struggle in this because we want to make all of these moments an opportunity to evangelize. And as a Christian, I understand the desire for that. We also recognize in a world that's becoming more and more post-Christian, and people are not, we can't just assume that everybody celebrates faith or even our faith. There is an opportunity to bring Jesus to every one of those moments and to do it in a way that is not overbearing and that's not pushing something down someone's throat at a moment that they're not even ready to receive it. If we see it correctly, we can show up and serve in such a way that Jesus is absolutely present and he's ministering to people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with us overtly offending people with a strong message or something like that. And again, I think that's an area that we've seen some clergy struggle, because it's, man, if you don't do it exactly my way, or if we're not doing it in my church, then I'm not doing it at all. I'm not even going to participate. And we have a very different outlook on that. We think this is a great opportunity for us to serve people and not look for all the ways that we can be divisive with people or push them away. Let's roll out the welcome mat with the love of Jesus and show them who he really is. And again, sometimes that might look like preaching an actual sermon if that fits the moment and that's what the couple is asking for. And other times it may not overtly be that. And yet there is still a way to bring Jesus to those moments, if that makes sense.
It sure does to me. When people are doing these kind of ceremonies, are they expected to provide that kind of message? I mean, are they creating their own message individually for each ceremony that they're doing?
They're actually expected not to unless asked to, if that makes sense. What we call it is a motivational moment. And again, I know for someone that's born and raised in a Christian church, they may cringe hearing that, going, wait a minute, you're not preaching the gospel? No, not overtly. And keep in mind, where this was founded was in Canada. And for those of us in the United States, especially if you're maybe in the Bible Belt part of the country, it may help you to realize that Canada, this is one of the things Wayne said to me very early when he and I met, because he had just recently moved to the United States, having been born and raised in Canada. He said, I feel like I've stepped into a time machine. He said, the United States is where Canada was 20, 30 years ago. Canada has very quickly become a post-Christian society where very few people are turning to clergy in these moments. They have no faith construct whatsoever, and they don't see the church as a valid part of these moments. And therefore, turning to professional clergy, that's just not even on their radar. So this is a subtle way, again, to show up in the lives of those people and bring Christ and his love to those moments without being pushy. So when I say we instruct our people not to, evangelize and preach a sermon, we really mean that. The cool thing is, Wayne and Roseanne have decades of stories now where they have had relationships that have been built with these couples, and they end up becoming a part of the family story. They end up not just doing one wedding, but many weddings. They end up walking beside this family through moments of joy and celebration and moments of grief and loss. And in that relational aspect, they get many opportunities to point people to Christ and to share their faith. They just don't torch that bridge on the very first gathering, but the very first wedding. So if they're working with a couple that doesn't really desire that to be a part of their wedding, then we're not going to. We're going to celebrate what's happening here. We're going to celebrate these two lives becoming one, and we're going to join in their story, and we're going to trust the Holy Spirit to provide the right moment, the right opportunities for that ministry to take place or that evangelism to take place. Maybe it's not happening today. Maybe, and again, for professional clergy, that's a little bit of a stretch to go, man, I don't know if I can get up and do this without resisting the urge to preach the gospel. And while on one hand, I get it, on the other hand, I see that this is actually working, this approach of building a relationship and just simply serving people where they are and letting the Holy Spirit work in his timeline and in his time frame for whatever else he desires to see fit happen beyond that point. So the simple answer is no. The only time we're really preaching a full-on gospel sermon is if the couple says, we are asking for that. We would love for you to share the gospel as a part of our wedding. Then absolutely, what a great opportunity to speak God's word to people. But if not, we're going to honor that. And we're going to, again, be a professional wedding officiant and resist that urge to, overstep our bounds where they've asked us not to.
Do these ceremonies take place in a church or in other venues like a park or even a backyard?
Yes, all over the place. And again, keep in mind where this started in Canada, very few are in a church because, again, many in Canada just aren't really seeing the church as a valid part of their life or any part of their life. These ceremonies happen all over the place, from wedding venues to golf courses to country clubs to hotel ballrooms to the backyard to a city park, wherever the case may be, mountaintops, air balloons, all over the place. But yeah, and again, it's that willingness. I'll meet you anywhere you want to go. Where are we doing the wedding? I'm there. Let's go. I'll show up and meet you there.
So I would assume that most people hire an officiant if they're not actively involved in a church. Otherwise, they bring in their pastor. But if they're holding the event at a church, have there been conflicts with a outside officiant coming in and leading a ceremony in a church?
That would be a better question for Wayne.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever heard him speak to that. Again, I'll tell you what I think is probably I'll take my best shot at that answer, and that would be this. For people that don't really have an active relationship with a pastor, they're probably not looking to that church venue anyway. Or if they are, it is simply that. It is simply the building that we're going to rent out to seat some people, and so therefore maybe not as big of an issue. I would think any point of resistance, that couple that's outside of the faith and outside of the church community, any point of resistance they would meet from the church, they would just say, okay, we're not going any further down this road. They're not going to push that. They'll find, and that's the point, they will find the places that will accept them. They will go to where there's someone who's willing to receive them as they are, where sadly, for a really long time, the church has said, oh, we'll join you in this celebration if you jump through all of our hoops. You need to attend our church. You need to give to our church. You need to believe exactly as we believe. And if you don't do all those things, then we're just not going to have any part of this major life moment. And we're probably missing an incredible opportunity to be there at this crossroad of life that we believe Jesus wants to be there. We believe Jesus's ministry started at a wedding. We believe that an entire theme of the kingdom ends at a wedding. And we think Jesus actually likes being at weddings. And so it's a sad thing that the church has, by and large, pushed many out and said, no, we're not really going to celebrate with you because you don't fit our mold and you're not doing it exactly the way we think you should. We believe the church is missing an opportunity. So there again, if we can get pastors on board with that message, our doors are wide open to them. Many are not, and therefore let's turn to those who see the opportunity for what it is and will lean into it. They're going to get in on this ministry. Sadly, many professional clergy are going to miss the opportunity. So we'll serve whoever sees it and wants to step into it.
Do the officiants have to be believers in order to be part of your organization?
I would say no. Having said that, I want to be really clear on this. We are a ministry. We are a Christian-based ministry, and we are a 501c3 organizations in order that we can be protected in the United States under freedom of religion, right? Because we may not necessarily require an outright profession of faith by our officiants. We do not ordain any of our officiants to conduct same-sex weddings. We align with Judeo-Christian biblical values when it comes to that. And so because of that, we do have a statement of faith. So I would say the majority are probably born-again believers. We just aren't necessarily stressing that right out of the gate.
Okay. When it comes to becoming an officiant, anybody can do it. So a truck driver who likes people and retired and wants to be part of these important celebrations can step in and do it. I'm assuming you provide training.
100%, it's required. And so for someone to be certified through us, they have to go through training and then also stay in our community. We have an ongoing community that has 2 calls a month where we are encouraging, supporting, giving coaching to people along their journey, because we want to keep an eye on what's going on in order to support them and just make sure that we are delivering quality services out there for the people that use our officiants. So absolutely, training is a must. It's required.
Is it in-person training or online?
It used to be back in the day before the pandemic hit. That's how this whole thing got started. Since COVID, all of that has been moved online, which we feel like we lose out a little bit of the face-to-face community that happens. And yet it has also opened the door for us to be able to do training with people from all over the place. It's take the good with the bad. And our training right now is all virtual.
And how long does it take to go through the program?
It's simple. It's a 2 full days of training for the wedding officiant. It's another 2 full days of training for the funeral celebrant. Those are 2 different things. Occasionally we see people who do both, but the more norm is that we see people that are on one or the other. It's interesting how those 2 worlds don't necessarily talk that much, the wedding world and the death industry, we would call it. But yeah, so we have 2 days of training for either one of those. And then our New Life Celebration training is a lot more simplified. It's about a half-day training for that, to learn how to show up in those moments and celebrate, take a family through a significant little ceremony to celebrate the life of a child that's been born.
How fun. So the officiants have to be certified in each one of the kind of ceremonies that they're going to be leading people into.
Yep, that is correct.
Is there a cost to this?
Yeah, there's a cost for both. I don't remember right off the top of my head. I believe the wedding officiant training is like $625 or $650 maybe. It's something in that's a real close ballpark. And the funeral officiant is in the $825 or $875, something like that. So very reasonable. I've told Wayne this is way too cheap for the value that you're providing. Because I got to tell you this, on what they get with this, on the wedding side, they get access to a resource. When you sit down with a couple, you can take them through a robust option where the couple gets to customize their wedding ceremony exactly as they want it. There's all kinds of different resources available to them in terms of readings, scripture readings. They can build the ceremony as they see fit, and then even speak into a little bit of that motivational moment of how you're going to show up and really share their story and celebrate their story. And as they get to customize that, all of that gets delivered to you, the officiant, via technology. So you have it all right there on your iPad for you to lead through their ceremony. So there's just a robust resource available for people that are a part of that training and that are certified in that. To me, it's one of the things I've told Wayne, you guys need to be charging way more for this because there's so much value here, especially when I can now take that certification and that training and go out and start getting paid to do this. I mean, in one wedding, I can make that up. One or two weddings easily, I can make up that investment, and it's well worth it.
That's what I was going to ask next, is what do people typically charge to officiate a wedding or a funeral?
I can tell you what I charge, and that's $750 for a wedding. Funerals are a little bit less than that. Often funerals are determined by the funeral home. They, as part of their services, they just set aside a fee and give that directly to the clergy. The funeral world's been a little different than the wedding world. For pastors, what is very common is to do a wedding and maybe you get paid something, maybe you don't. Very few pastors would ever have thought of setting a fee for the services that they provide through their, for officiating a wedding. And so that's, again, one of the major paradigms that a pastor needs to work through to really lean into this. And so for me, $750 is the fee that I put out there to show up and do an excellent job as a professional officiating your wedding. It's not going to be cringeworthy. It's not going to be awkward. You're paying far more than that to so many of the other players around this party. I have no issue charging for the value that I know I'm going to bring and deliver, and you're not going to regret it. So I don't know what everybody charges, but I would say it's probably $500 plus is probably a pretty average ballpark for showing up to do a wedding.
That's very reasonable income. So people can have a thriving part-time business in retirement by officiating weddings and funerals and new life celebrations.
Yeah, think about it. You just book, if you went with my rate, just 2 weddings a weekend, like that's moving the needle significantly. There's probably days you could do 2 or 3 weddings in a single day. I've heard Wayne and Roseanne talk about the number of weddings that they did over the years, and it's mind-blowing. And so there's absolutely opportunity for income as well as the impact that you're having in these moments.
See, I would think the officiant would have to do the ceremony, then show up for dinner and do a blessing and a little presentation there as well. Is that not true?
It's absolutely not. And see, that's how I thought too. Greg, for years as a pastor, I come for a rehearsal, and then I have to go to the rehearsal dinner, and then I've got to be there several hours early and then stay through the whole thing, or at least through the prayer. And not at all. And as a wedding officiant, you're there early enough to be on time and make sure everything's good, and you do your part, and then respectfully you step away and you're out of the way. And so Wayne has told stories of days that he did 2 or 3 weddings in a day, no problem, if they're spaced out appropriately. So.
It is kind of sad when you think about it, the amount of work that a pastor does for a wedding, with the rehearsal dinner, the rehearsal, the wedding itself, the wedding dinner, and all of that, and then only to be slipped $50 to $100. And thank you for
And Greg, keep in mind, for a lot of pastors, including myself, for many of the early years of my ministry, they also will require 8 to 10 to 12 weeks of premarital training that they walk through with the couple. And again, it's coming from a good place. It's coming from a heart's desire to really see this couple thrive. I get it, but they don't charge for that. You think about the amount of hours that you're pouring into somebody, and then how big of a slap in the face that is when they're like, oh, here you go, pastor. Here's a $50 gift card to Chili's. It just doesn't add up when you look around and see everyone else at the level they're getting paid, and yet how this pastor showed up and served.
Right.
It really is a slap in the face. But again, I don't blame the couple. If they're doing it right, they do one wedding in their life. And yet pastors, we've just allowed ourselves to be treated that way. And that's a conversation that I have a lot with pastors in that entree pastors space, is just helping pastors go, let's show up differently. Let's learn to charge for the value we provide, whether it's in this arena or any other part of the marketplace. You have skills that are worth being paid for anyone else. And we don't have to accept this narrative of the starving pastor anymore. Let's show up differently. And that's the empowering thing, is that's within our ability to change. I can change that. I don't have to keep playing by those rules anymore. So it is cool to see we do have professional clergy that are thriving now, doing a skill that they did for years and got paid next to nothing for. And now they're thriving, and it's a part-time business of theirs, business/ministry. And it's really cool to see that.
Now, as officiants, they are professionals, but they also own their own business. You're not paying them to do this. They are out there marketing their own business, setting their own rates, doing their own advertising, and the couples or whoever needs an officiant is not going to a website and submitting a lead that you would then give to somebody, correct?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. We are not a central hub where everything is flowing through us. We are training, equipping, and releasing these folks to go out and do their own thing as independent businesses on their own. Essentially, they set all that up. One thing we do provide, Greg, is it's an option that a lot of people choose to take, is we will build a personal website for the officiants. And there's an additional cost for that, but it's very reasonable. And it's very professionally done. And so with just a little more money, you can have your own website that's custom built to you. And now, boom, there it is. You're ready to market that. And while we don't do marketing for them, that's part of that ongoing coaching that we do in our community calls. We do encourage you with best practices, and we will answer questions and help you do your own marketing and help navigate some of that as you're getting started in that space, because we do want to see our officiants thrive. And there's Wayne and Roseanne have done it, and we've got many other proven success stories in our community over the years of people that have done it. So if you do what we tell you to do and take action on the coaching that you get, we're confident you can set up a thriving wedding officiant practice in your region, in your community, however you want to build that out. But yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because we are not managing all of these different things. Couples are not coming to us. We are serving the officiants directly, and then they go out on their own and build their own practices.
Do the officiants need a license?
Yeah, basically in every state, the laws are a little bit different, but you do need to be licensed within that state, within that county, to be able to officiate a wedding. And that's where a lot of times our answer is check your local listing, because again, Canada has some different rules. You get into the United States, a lot of it's similar, but also there are nuanced differences from one state to the next. So that's where, as an officiant, you're going to have to learn what are the laws of the land where you live. And we'll help you navigate that, but you're going to have to really look into that and figure that out for where you are.
Earlier in the interview, you mentioned that wedding laws might be impacted and that the officiants would have to follow those. What are some of the rules or kind of laws that the officiants would have to pay attention to?
Again, that may be a better question for Wayne on the Canadian side, because the government in Canada is far more involved in this. There's legalities around a registry that is to be kept. And I don't really even want to speak too much to it, because I've born and raised American citizen. I don't know those laws. Just as I've listened to Wayne talk about them, I recognize there are some differences. I know as a clergy here in the United States, I've done weddings in 3 or 4 different states now, and all of the laws have basically been similar. As long as I am an ordained minister, and as long as the couple is going through the courthouse in the county that they're getting married to get their actual marriage license, my role is to make sure that I conduct a legal wedding ceremony, and then I get that official paperwork delivered back to the courthouse in that county. That's been pretty simple on my end. So again, I know you get into some of these bluer states, I believe more and more we're starting to see new other regulations come down, but I can't really speak with a lot of clarity on what the different laws are from one state to the next.
Do you help folks set up businesses, or do you give them a template? Okay.
Yeah, from a coaching standpoint, we'll walk them through that. And again, there's different ways that can be done in terms of you need to actually set up an LLC, or can you just run it as a sole proprietorship? And so we'll give some coaching around that. We don't actually do that work for the individuals. They're going to have to do it, but we'll guide them and coach them in that for sure.
Okay. You tell them, give them a general idea that you might want to start with this agency and find out what the requirements are in your community. And then they'll tell you what you need to do and then do it. Okay, wonderful. It sounds like a great opportunity for people over 50 to explore as not only an income-producing thing, which everybody likes to have, but also as a way to have purpose in their lives and to give their lives a sense of meaning. And it'd be fun to officiate weddings and new babies and things like that, and also an opportunity to work with families to provide comfort and care in one of the most saddest moments of their lives.
Yeah, and Greg, I just want to say this for your audience that I think and I'm not too far away from your crowd, right? I'm 45, I'll be 46 this year, so I'm pushing 50, and I genuinely believe that my greatest years of impact are still in front of me. I'm not rushing to get there, but I look forward to my 60s and 70s. I think those are going to be some of the most impactful years. And if I can just challenge your audience, I want you to know this, guys. Our culture has done a huge disservice, dishonor, disrespect to our elderly generation by basically treating you as though you've done your time. We're turning you out to pasture. We don't need to hear from you anymore. There's not much value you have to deliver. If I can just speak this over you, as someone who's just a little bit further behind on the age spectrum, we need you. We need your voice. We need your wisdom. We need your experience. And rather than leaning into that narrative of your best days are behind you, if I could just light a fire under you to say, you may be retired, that's great, but your purpose is not retired. You are not retired from the impact that God has for your life. And whether it's through this or a number of other opportunities, I'm challenging you to really lean into a fresh wind, a fresh fire for your later chapters in life, because some of your greatest years of impact are right now. And yes, Greg, I'm very biased in saying it, but I genuinely believe this life celebration avenue would be a great fit for many in your community to look at. And if they're interested, I'd be happy to encourage them to go to lifecelebrationinstitute.com. That's our overarching website over all these different arenas, lifecelebrationinstitute.com. And there you can find out dates of our upcoming training. You can connect with me or Wayne through there and reach out, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing this information with our audience. Like I said, I think it's a great opportunity for people over 50, and I encourage them to reach out to the Institute to get that training and start their own businesses and start changing lives.
Thank you, Greg. It's been fun hanging out with you today. I wish you all the best.
When I first heard about Life Celebration Institute, I saw it as a tremendous opportunity for people over 50 to enjoy a sense of purpose by serving families during the most meaningful moments of their lives. So I'm thankful to Jon Sanders for telling us more about this program. Jon's right. For most professional ministers, doing weddings and funerals is an add-on or expected duty. It's additional work for which they aren't necessarily compensated for the extra time. They might get a $100 stipend or a gift card. However, Jon explained the officials presiding over ceremonies are often the lowest paid professionals at those very important and memorable events. Life Celebration Institute trains people to show up at the events and serve with empathy, professionalism, and a strong, secure leadership. The celebrants stand in the gap conducting a legal ceremony for weddings and telling the real story about people who have died. Jon explained that many funerals involve little more than reciting someone's obituary, when in fact there is far more meaning to the person's life. To become trained to conduct life celebrations, the officials really need to care about other people, commit to showing up on time, and being professionally dressed. They are committed to creating a memorable event for the family. The Institute trains people how to conduct ceremonies in ways that brings Jesus to the moment, but not in an overbearing manner as though they are reading from a liturgy handbook. Jon explained that Canada is already a post-Christian society, and the United States is following closely behind. For many people, turning to professional clergy during these important moments is not even on their radar. Therefore, the officiants are trained to serve people wherever they are on their faith journey, but in a professional, loving, and memorable manner. Training generally takes place online over a 2-day period, and people need separate certifications to conduct funerals, weddings, and new life celebrations. Training costs are currently $125 for new life celebrations, $625 for weddings, and $825 for funerals. In addition, the trained professionals pay an annual fee to Life Celebration Ministries to maintain their certification. However, people who officiate the ceremonies are often making around $750 or more to officiate a wedding. As independent business owners, they can set their own prices and determine which jobs to accept. To learn more about becoming certified to officiate life celebrations, visit www.lifecelebrationinstitute.com. It's an ideal opportunity for people who are great listeners, passionate about serving others, and experienced communicators. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. If you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes. Thanks for listening.